everybody. Welcome to X Factor. Simon Clemens, your host here. Super excited today to be with my guest, Brad Johnson, our Director of Talent from the state of Wisconsin. Brad, welcome to X Factor. Awesome to have you on board.
Awesome. Yeah. Excited to talk here and keep growing the game of football.
Yeah, well, and you've done it better than almost anybody nationally, man. I don't know if you've looked at your stats recently, but Wisconsin just crossed over 500 nominations. And 180 athletes have registered for the Wisconsin All-State game. So props to you. Really exciting to see those numbers come in and testament to the hard work you've put in across the state this year.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. I just, again, glad it's growing, glad it's bigger than last year. And that's always the goal, and giving kids an opportunity. And I think we're making some great connections, not only for this year, but for the future. And it'll be something that people watch out for in the future, I believe. Another great event this year, and we should be booming the rest of the way.
Yeah, I have no doubt about it. And I think already, we're at a point where that critical mass has been met, so we're going to have a 6th grade game, a 7th grade game, and an 8th grade game. I think you got some great kids and some great coaches lined up. But I actually want to kind of go start at the beginning. So, obviously, you started with us in Wisconsin. I think that was the fall of 2024. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
And you really came on kind of as a coach. You were looking to build your own team and kind of approach it that way. And then obviously, you had a lot of success last year just in your own personal journey, which is why we brought you on as the Director of Talent for the state of Wisconsin. Can you talk a little bit about that first effort last year with the All-State game and kind of what you learned in that initial outreach effort that you had?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've kind of talked about this a little bit before in a similar setting. I kind of thought I was applying for something that might have been spam, but I was at a point in my career where I was like, whatever, who cares? I ain't got no money anyways, right? So I applied for it. A couple of days later. They're scheduling an interview with me, or you guys were, and it's kind of the rest is history. And then when I found out and kind of learned more about it and what really goes into it, I was like, okay, I want to make sure that we're touching every corner of the state. Wisconsin is very diverse, from not only the urban populations, rural populations, and kind of hit every nook and cranny. And I kind of felt like maybe I was the guy for the North a little bit. So I want to make sure I was getting to as many coaches and stuff as possible. And I got a lot of connections, a lot of people that have met me before, or seen me before, or heard from me before. Sometimes controversy follows me, but that's okay. It brings a little recognition for sure. And I kind of tapped into that, and we were able to get a lot of nominations. And now this year I kind of turned around and tapped right back into it. So it's obviously grown a lot since then. Even, this year's a lot more structured in terms of like how I approach people, or kind of my process or timeline for approaching people. I felt like I was just kind of flying by seat of my pants year one. And now I feel like there's a lot more direction as to what I've done. Like I could look back in all my data for this year and I'd be like, okay, I can see what my approach was here. And then it kind of shifted, then it shifted again. And now I'm reaching out to these people that are, getting into the clubs and the actual Pop Warner programs rather than talking to the head coach or the athletic director. So I just feel like the return on investment has been a lot better, and knowing who to focus on, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about that though? I'm really interested. Like, the All-State game itself, it's really important that it's a community-driven event. And I think that what's been cool about watching you work is you've done a great job across the state. But I think a big part of that has been understanding that each one of these communities is its own thing, that each football community is its own football community. They're not necessarily super tied, especially at that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade level. These coaches aren't necessarily tied, hundreds of miles away from each other, which in a state as big as Wisconsin, certainly, the case. I mean, you've got kids. I was checking the map the other day. I mean, you've got kids coming all the way from over at La Crosse, up at Stephen or Superior, down into the Milwaukee and the Illinois border and everywhere in between. So can you talk a little bit about that? Just kind of like, how have you approached identifying and finding contacts in these youth communities and turning them into nominators? Like, what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, it's been interesting for sure, because as diverse as it is in the northern part of the state, the western, the eastern, and the southern, it's also diverse in terms of like a lot of the bigger districts or bigger schools, their middle school or Pop Warner isn't tied to them at all. So sometimes there's like no contact between them. Like, especially when you're talking about multiple high schools in one district, a lot of times the head coach has no pull he maybe doesn't even know who the Pop Warner coach is. And I think that was kind of tough there. So it was a lot of just scouring the web, or, trying to find a parent or somebody or friend I had maybe in that community that could tell me a little more about the youth program or the youth coach, or maybe who the president is, or a board member, or someone who coached on it. And once you slowly start pulling those layers of the onion back, you're able to kind of dive in a little further and really kind of get the heartbeat of the program, the heartbeat of the team, and kind of see who's the person to talk to, how to get nominations, and go that direction, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, how have you? I mean, that's just it. I think each of these networks, that's what's been interesting to me. Everywhere, every state I go to, I'm building a new network with a new group of people. And then I'm watching you do it at the local community. What do you think has been, allowed you to be so successful with it? Because, whenever I look at the Brad Johnson network, honestly, I'm always just the number of unique nominators that you've managed to identify across the state is honestly, it's pretty staggering. I mean, I think you're over 150 different coaches have nominated athletes for the All-State game. I mean, are you talking to all these guys? How are you, kind of introducing the program and getting them to support and get the deserving kids from their communities nominated?
I feel like that's kind of like a really loaded question. I hope I can answer all parts of it. I'd say there's for sure a handful that I've never spoken to that guy before. So for instance, when I kind of reach out to like a neighboring town down the road, like let's say Amherst, their head coach sends it on to their like middle school or youth coach, and then they take care of nominating. They're a very organized program, very specific. So like he trusts that guy to take care of the nominating. I don't even talk to that guy. So in some ways, that's really nice. In other places, it is the trickle-down effect, like Grafton. I got a hold of the head coach, and the head coach put me in contact with Chris Yeager, the youth club president. And then I was playing phone tag with him for a few weeks with vacations and different things. So, and I don't even know if we have any Grafton kids nominated here today, but I've talked to that guy a few times on the phone. I've called him at least a dozen times. It's always interesting on how that ends up working out, but everyone's schedules are different. So I think like with the terms of like unique nominators, do I necessarily talk on the phone with all of them? A lot of them, it'll be a contact sent through the coach. Hey, here's their email, and then from there, it's either a text or an email, and I let them know, hey, you might get on the phone and talk if they want to. We do general health, football, growth of football in Wisconsin isn't necessarily great just because we're limited on so much of what we can do and like seasons and stuff. But I think it's super prideful. So I think people are really scared they're cautionary to nominate kids for an event like this because they don't want to be like, oh, I nominated this kid and he was awful in the game, right? So I think a few more of them, or as they gain more confidence in the game, they'll probably open their kind of eyes a little bit or vision a little further and realize that, no, this kid deserves a chance. He might develop between now and when the game happens in July. I mean, puberty's it's free testosterone, free steroids. I mean, it's the only time in your life. A lot of things happen during that time. So yeah, that's kind of how I've handled it, I guess.
What do you think? I mean, I guess I'd ask you, well, I'll start here. When coaches push back and they're like, obviously it sounds like, first of all, it sounds like you've got a lot of phone calls. Is that accurate? I mean, you seem to be somebody who really pushes to get on the phone and connect with people.
Yeah, I definitely, just because I'm really bad at responding to texts and stuff. So when people call me, I tend to answer if I can, and if they call twice, I know I need to answer for sure type thing if I don't have their number. That's why I kind of get on the phones is because, with AI and spam and everything right now, I'm like, well, if I give them multiple calls from the same number, introduce myself in the voicemail, better chance they pick up next time. But I'm fine. I'm a talker, so I'm really fine with cold calling people. I think that's really effective. And I think they can realize that I'm not somebody out here to like make a buck. I'm trying to do the right thing and help football grow in Wisconsin. At the end of the day, that's my ultimate goal, and that's why I signed up for this job. It's no other reason other than that.
Yeah, it seems like, Wisconsin's definitely responding in a big way to the middle school opportunity. I mean, we wouldn't have 183 registered kids if people weren't genuinely interested in the opportunity. And I think a big part of that has come in how you've communicated what this game is to these coaches, because I make a lot of these calls myself, and there is just like an inherent, what is this? How does it work? What is it? What should a nomination be? I think those are they can be really tricky. And fair enough, right? You're a steward of youth athletes. It's your job to be skeptical. What do you think are the things that kind of allow you to get past that skepticism and turn people into believers?
Speaking frankly and honestly, I don't really sugarcoat it. Like, I'm not like, it's not the greatest thing in the world. It's not the best thing. It's not everybody has to do it, but it is approaching being something that everybody needs to be a part of, right? Anybody who wants to go to that next level or thinks they, belong here or there, don't get the competition they need at their home program because they're at a small school, or just need an opportunity. Maybe it's just sometimes in youth, it's with the coaches, right? Like, I always get put at this position and I know I can do this. Well, perfect. When you get into this game, you'll have some opportunity to kind of see if that's true or not, right? So when I'm having these conversations, I start off kind of with like my story a little bit and how I loved my opportunity and everything last year. And then there were some things I saw about the game, and like not so much game, more about like how, like the small details of how we're interacting and how organization is happening and where we could clean things up. And I said, it's going to be better this year. I don't put my name on anything unless I'm going to give it 100%. And so I think it's when you're being honest with people that, like, it's not all the cats. We're not Idaho. We haven't been doing this for 20 years and got multiple guys in the NFL. When we get to that point, we'll talk like that, but people already know by then, right? So I think you just got to be like bare bones, tell the truth of where we're at and where we're trying to go. And at the end of the day, I think that's been really successful for me.
I'm really excited this year about hosting at Carroll University. I think hosting at the college field is going to be an awesome experience for the kids. And that is really definitely a meeting point for the kids in the state to get to come down and experience that. Can you talk a little bit about the game day atmosphere at the All-State game and why you think that's such an opportunity for a kid to get to showcase for his family and friends and really, perform at a high level?
Yeah, I don't know. I've coached at many different levels in terms of like varsity head coach, also ran our youth club, so our Pop Warner football team for years and stuff. And just having pretty much every kid that's there is bought into football, right? They want to be there. They want to compete. They want to go out there and win. They want to go showcase. They give a crap about everything. And maybe there's coaches out there that are fortunate enough that they coach a program where every single kid on the team is that way. I'll tell you right now, that is not where I have been at any point in my career. So having that atmosphere was just like really unique. Like seeing how these kids are like getting hyped up before the game. I mean, I pull videos up on my phone and my personal videos of last year's game still. And we had like a team song, Red Rum, that was out there. It was like brand new. I didn't even know it till we got to camp. And they walked out with the speaker and like we walked past the other team doing that. And he actually ran out during introductions. Our lineman, his name is Judd. He's from Kakana. He ran out with it. We had to stop him halfway because it was Bluetooth. It was on the phone. So my brother had to run the phone out to him. So he ran out there with his blaring over it. I mean, it's just something you've never been a part of before. And it's just kids that are trying to maybe not fit into a script, right? They're not around their buddies from home. They're not around their coaches and all the other things. Like it's somewhere where they just kind of get to cut loose and be. So they maybe get to be a little more boisterous than they normally are, a little more outgoing or a little more flashy, or maybe they get to not have to hype everybody up, because I was that kid, right? I had to hype everybody up on my team all the time. I felt like that was my job. Well, that's exhausting. So when you're here and you're like, wow, everybody's hyped up on their own, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I love what you just said about, I do think that when you put kids, especially at this age, around other kids that just have a high standard and they want something and they want to be there, it allows the whole group to rise, and it allows you to kind of reset even what you might think your floor is. Like, how do you know where you're going, or even where you can go? You know what I mean? Until you've been around kids that are like, no, I'm hungry like you. I want to push that next. I want to take this drill or this, this opportunity to compete. I want to take it to another level. And, I think you're lucky in a middle school environment anyway, if there's a few of those kids on a team to push you like that. I mean, it's just a hard age. Like, and yet here we go. Okay, everybody's here. That's what we're doing.
Right.
I think that's just a totally different mentality. So I love that you shared that, because, when I think about the All-State game and what it really should symbolize, it should be about kids who love football first and foremost. And, sometimes coaches ask me, like, this is actually a tricky one, Brad. And I'm kind of curious how you deal with it, because I've been getting this quite a bit over the past couple of days. I'll have a guy and he'll be like, well, I got this kid. He's amazing. I got one kid that's amazing. And I'm like, that's awesome. We definitely want you to nominate that kid. But you know what I mean? There's got to be other kids in your program that deserve some recognition and opportunity to compete. So how do you, you know what I mean? Like, how do you kind of get across that bridge? Because I do think as any coach, right, we've got our favorite athlete who we know, just like I was on the football field for 5 minutes in the first practice. I knew this kid was awesome.
Right.
But then there's kids that surprise you over a season, or, they're a little different demeanor. So maybe they don't stand out. Or, to be perfectly honest with you, maybe they're just, maybe they're on the line and they're playing in the guard position, and there's just not as many chances in the guard position to like
showcase
and be out there. So how do you kind of address that? Because I think that's something that, coaches need to realize, that I think their community deserves a few different multiple kids to be recognized.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're still like when you nominate as a coach, you're trying to grow the sport of football in the state, obviously, but you're also trying to grow the sport of football in your hometown. So if you take your best athlete and let's say he really is head and shoulders above everybody else, and you were on an 0 for life team, you guys never win, showcasing that kid one more time probably isn't doing anything for that kid in that sense. Now, sending him there because iron sharpens iron and he really gets to measure himself, like he's the big fish in a small pond, kind of, so to speak, on his home team. And, in tackle drills, you have to hold him out because he hurts others, whatever. He's so good, right? But now you give him an opportunity to go compete against other kids who are the exact same way, exact same built different, blah, blah, blah. Great. But you also need to nominate that number 2 and that number 3 behind them, because now they are going to bond with that kid even more by going to that game. And then they get to say, okay, this is what it takes. It's not just that Johnny, who's the best right here, he's just mean and he's more mature or anything like that. It's that, no, this is how football's played and this is what I need to do to rise to that level. This is how other kids didn't back down from Johnny or didn't back down because the guy across from him was 280 pounds in 8th grade. They stayed low. They used their pad level and angles and drove their feet and they were successful, right? And I think there's a lot of value in that. And I think people try to make this bigger than what it needs to be in terms of like, okay, who makes the cutoff, who doesn't, right? Like 2, give me 2. At least, right? Like at least nominate 2 because there's an opportunity there to grow your home program even more by having a second kid there. Yes, the first kid gets iron sharpens iron effect. The other kid's like, okay, I got to rise this level to play on this game this Saturday. He's going to play no matter what, obviously, unless he turns to his coach and says, hey, I don't want to go in. But it's not like that at all. So I hope that makes sense. And that's kind of my take on it and my belief on it. And anybody who's brought that same thing to me, that's kind of what I said to them.
Well, I love that. I think it's important, especially for other scouts and DOTs to hear, because, I get it. Like it's always exciting to like know the kid or to think you found the one or whatever. But, especially at the middle school age, I think that it's what you said earlier, right? Like they're in these different stages of development and it really hasn't leveled out yet. And so, sometimes it can be that, especially, even we've been nominating kids since December. You know what I mean? And so even in that 6 months, I mean, it could have been that, Johnny went from being, 5'6", 120 to like, nope, now he's 5'11", and, a huge part of it. The one thing that I always come back to is as long as we got kids that love football, I mean, they do need to be able to keep up. And I certainly, I don't want to be dismissive of that. I mean, they should be good players. But I think the bigger thing is if you love football, odds are you're going to do the work. And if you're willing to do the work, eventually that growth spurt's going to hit and you're going to grow into your body and you're going to become a pretty good football player. Now, what level you end up taking that to, who knows? But certainly if NFL teams can, they pick guys in famously, right, in the 6th round, 7th round. Brock Purdy is currently starting for the San Francisco 49ers. The NFL is scouting millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars spent on scouting quarterbacks in that class. Mr. Irrelevant is now the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. So we're talking about 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders. Like I would like to just remind everybody that, hey, these kids have big dreams and they want something. And if we give them an opportunity to come and play in an environment that raises the level of what they think they can become, the sky's the limit. And really, as long as we get those kids to love football, I think they're going to do really well with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely. I think the real world will not pause to crush our dreams and our hopes later on. But so why are we going to crush them when they're in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, right? Like let them believe a little longer, let them have hope a little longer, right? And then maybe something does happen. The other thing I want to say about this, and we probably are got to get off this topic, I get it, is people are under nominating offensive linemen. Here's my big thing here. No 6th, 7th, and 8th grader is an excellent pass blocker, run blocker, has all the technique down and stuff. If they are nasty down in the trenches and they're ready to just get after, and it doesn't mean they're great, nominate them. If they have a big frame that, whatever, nominate them. If they're the best lineman on your team, nominate them. I don't care what the level is at, because we're A, going to help them grow, and B, we're going to help them grow, but we're going to instill belief in them that they are a good offensive lineman. And if they keep working, they're going to be going the right direction, right? And they're going to be able to improve and get to where they really want to be. So I think there's a lot of value in that, and I think it's undervalued currently.
I love it. You just made me think of The Blind Side. There's that whole scene where she's like, protect your family or whatever, and it finally clicks, and he just takes the kid and drives him into the end zone.
Put him on the bus.
Like that's that mentality. I mean, because I do think for a lot of kids, I mean, how many of us aren't looking for? There's that moment where it clicks, and like I mean, you never know when it's going to be, but like I do think that the All-State game is a place where we give a good opportunity for that click to happen. Where maybe the kid leaves and just is inspired, and they're ready to go hit the weight room a little bit more, and they're ready to go, get their diet right, and you know what I mean. It just those things where I always say, at a certain point, you take yourself seriously.
Yep.
That can happen in middle school. It could happen in high school. For some people, it doesn't happen until they're 28.
Yeah.
But there's a day where you wake up and you're like, oh, I have the right to want things for me.
Yeah.
And if that's true, then go get it. You know what I mean? It's there for you. Like, what a cool thing. And so if the All-State game can be that to some of these kids, I really think there's an opportunity. And yeah, please, Wisconsin, if you have an opportunity, if you've got a lineman that's hungry and wants to learn, like we would love him to join the All-State game. That would be a fantastic addition. So I hope that message is getting heard. Last question I have is just about coaching staff. So you've been working on that, putting that together. Can you talk a little bit about, kind of the development experience that kids can expect at the game and how you've picked the coaches to lead that?
Yeah, I think we're really focusing on getting coaches that are great men, right? Men of character, men that are willing to put the needs of these kids and their growth before like winning. Because at the end of the day, you win the All-State game, I guess, if you will, and you're the head coach. Like I lost as the 8th grade coach last year. Was I mad we lost? Definitely not like losing on a Friday night or anything like that. Like I was like disappointed we lost. For the kids mad, yeah. But it was my job to keep that in reality and keep that in check. But I wanted to make sure they had a great time. I wanted to make sure they experienced, great learning opportunities, whether it's through drills or through the leadership talk or how coaches should talk to kids, how they should treat their teammates and stuff. And I wanted them to be out there competing and making sure that when they left football from our facility, that they were excited to get back to their home facility and get back to work, right? And I think we did that. I've seen a few of the kids from opposing teams. They were in our conference this past year, and just one of them, we had lightning delay, and he's a freshman, obviously, this year. And I was able to go find him, give him a hug, chat it up a little bit during the lightning delay, and it was awesome. It was like, it's like the relationship never died, right? Like, it was like we had just saw each other at the All-State game yesterday. And the kids that play in Manawa were over there chatting it up with him too, and hugging, taking photos after the game. And I think there's a lot of value in that. So I guess going back to it, my number one goal this year is to get a diverse group of coaches and to make sure they're great men of character and really putting the needs of the kids before their own, because that's really not what this is supposed to be about. So I guess that's how I would explain I've gone about trying to fill the coaching staffs this year.
Well, no, I appreciate it, because I think that's something that's, we're aware it's a 3-day program. The first 2 days are dedicated towards development. The third day is game day. And so from a coaching perspective, you can only do so much with install, particularly in this age group. But I mean, really, any age, if you're trying to put in a complicated new offense, this is probably not the place for that. What you're trying to do, is obviously put in, really basic functional, get the offensive line moving as much as in a unit as possible, and make sure that the assignments are happening. And hopefully the playbook's skinny enough that the quarterback can handle the calls at the line and the right player gets the ball. That said, I also think that, our goal is to showcase all the kids. And so it's, one thing that's really important is just, we're trying to make sure, snaps are tracked and that we're, keeping track of that. And, everybody gets an opportunity. And that means, obviously, you talk about winning and losing. Well, the game can't be about winning and losing if, that's a huge part of it. Is like, yeah, you're coming up to the All-State game, you're going to get your snaps to showcase. And that needs to happen. One thing I'm excited about this year, Brad, is that I know you are going to be leading the coaches, but you won't actually be a coach of a team. So you've selected this entire staff. But I think that's going to give us an opportunity too, just to have somebody who's a voice of that throughout and just kind of making sure things are running smoothly. So, can you talk a little bit about that position and how you plan to, sort of lead the coaches?
Yeah, I kind of go back to what I said earlier with the fact that, I signed my name to a contract. I write on some, it's going to give my max effort. And I just think that the growth factor this year is going to be like how much more organized we can be day of, and how we are structured in what we're doing and making sure we don't have coaches end up flying by the seat of their pants a little bit. And maybe I was part of that last year too. You know, we practiced over on a grass field rather than a turf. We don't want to cram all the teams in on that and stuff. But I think that this has to be as much of a whole team thing when you're there. All the kids are there. And I think that this year, like my kind of vision for it will be much more like that. So just everything from, I'm kind of spacing on the question here a little bit, but just kind of going back to the beginning here, the structure portion of it, you know, how, like knowing beforehand who's running what drills and stuff. And then going back to the equal playing time. Yeah, that's super, super, super important. I don't care if little Johnny's out there at receiver and that means we're not going to be able to throw the ball for, you know, a bomb on this play, like whatever. It doesn't matter at the end of the day for that. It's about their experience and mom and dad getting to see them out there. And hopefully at the end of the day, the main goal is to propel these kids to want to get better at football and grow football in the state of Wisconsin, in their communities, in their schools, and make it a goal that you get nominated to play in this game. And from that standpoint, that is the only thing that matters, right? So I just want to make sure that's going to be getting across to coaches in the right way, the right tone. I've never had problems stepping on people's toes. So not that I know more than these guys or anything, but at the end of the day, my vision comes down from you guys. And then I take the vision that I have of what you guys are telling me, and I need to make it work, and they have to fit underneath that. And that's the way it's going to be. And I like our vision we have right now. And I'm really excited for this event. You know, July 9, thank God it's far enough away because I'm not ready for it yet, but I wish it was here tomorrow at the same time.
Well, it is just awesome to get to play some meaningful football in the summer. I mean, right? Like let's pad up and you know, get some hits in and really just, you know, the coolest thing to me about it is, I mean, you said it and it just bears repeating, which is this is about, you know, the state of Wisconsin bringing together the football community to grow, you know, the sport. And it's a group of people, like everybody I talk to from your community, they're so passionate about the sport. You know, they're so, like, they care so much, and they care so much about the kids who are coming up playing and giving them the opportunities. And it just seems like an awesome, I mean, yeah, you can see why Wisconsin punches above its weight with high level talent for a reason. You know what I mean? And I think the state is, you know, it's nowhere near as big as Texas, but some of the, you know, some really great players have come out of these like small farm communities and, you know, the Milwaukee area and La Crosse, whatever. Yeah. You know, Wisconsin shows on a national level at a really, really high rate, which is cool. And I guess all I'm saying in sharing that is that I'm seeing that with the guys that you've connected me with. I mean, it's clear that football means a lot to these people up there, and the, you know, investing in this age group especially. I mean, these kids are just, yeah, they're open canvas, right? They're going to share in the joy and love it. And you know, it really does come before maybe, you know, I do think that you shift into that high school age group, and it's not a bad thing, but certainly, you know, the challenge changes, the stress changes around it. You know what I mean? Whereas with this group, we got kids that can just have a riot, which is pretty cool.
Right. And I mean, typically at this age, kids are still people pleasers, you know, a lot of them are, and there's nothing wrong with that. So while they're in that phase, which we all know ends very soon here, you know, we gotta push on it, right? We gotta help them grow during that stage as much as possible, because at some point the rebellion starts, and maybe it started already for some of them. I know that's the case, but at the end of the day, they love football. That's why they're at this game, and they want to get better. That's why they're at this game. You love football because you're coaching it. So let's put all of it together, get it aligned on the compass, and go the right direction. And it should be a great event, and it'll propel them into hopefully great high school careers, and hopefully some college careers, and maybe some NFL careers. And then I take 10% of every contract they ever signed, but whatever.
Well, at least you'll be able to follow him on Instagram and get a shout back, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
With that, Brad, it's been awesome having you on X Factor. I love talking football with you. Really excited about what you built in Wisconsin. Super impressed, man. You know, we got 6 weeks until game time. As you said, July 9th, 10th, and 11th is going to be the game up there at Carroll University, you know, outside of Milwaukee. Waukegan, is it?
Yes.
It's Waukegan, right? I got to get these Wisconsin towns right. But yeah, so the showcase game on the college field up at Carroll. It's going to be an awesome 3 days. Our director of talent and coach lead at the event, Brad Johnson. Thanks so much for joining X Factor, man. Great having you.
I appreciate you, Simon. Looking forward to it. Thanks for all your help.
All right, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, catch you later.
Brad. That was awesome, man. Thanks, man.